This Monday, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah.
People keep asking me when am I gonna do stuff. So
All right, inshallah. Listen, we still going. Alhamdulillah. We actually live
You said we live?
now. Yep. Just things are picking up. People have to. Uh, can you hear me? Everything can you hear me? Everybody can hear me still
I
good?
can hear you, yeah. Can y'all hear
Okay.
me?
So now, all right. So yeah, we're live now. People, I guess we're giving people a chance to come on.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
Bismillah. Uh, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Thank you everyone for coming back on to Kahf Recitation and Conversations. With now, I think I should actually feature not just Ashir Kirk, but I can Ashir.
Yes, sir.
Is it Kirk?
Yeah, Kirk.
But the one who's shaking her head like don't say Sister Khadija, because she's been such a regular.
I
And
know,
I have
right?
to say,
Gotta
not to
make
mention
space.
her.
Gotta make space on the flyer.
And truthfully, and I've been very actually appreciative of your reflections.
Likewise.
Yeah, they've been actually very beneficial and definitely added to the conversation. So really appreciate that, Khadija.
Allahu
Um,
Akbar.
so just make sure everyone who is on, make sure that you share your session with other people so that they can also know and share the love and the goodness that we try to provide with this particular platform. And we are up to ayah 10 now, which is the ayah that we want, that the goal, the ayah that we wanted to reach. And I'm happy about that. Being consistent is a big deal to me. Something I try to be better at one day after the next. So before we get started, we have a word of the day, word of the week that we try to focus on. And today, that word is one of Allah's 99 names. Well, derivative of one of Allah's 99 names, but Rahmah, which is a word that is used in Ayah 10. So, Brother Ashir,
Sir.
you could talk a little bit about Rahmah. Big word, right?
Yeah.
Big word, right? Big word, one that we use all the time in some way, shape, or form, right?
Right, definitely.
You can go
Inshallah.
ahead.
So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una, وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا متقبلا يا أرحم الراحمين. So, the word mercy or rahmah in Arabic, it was. So, am I going to recite first and after this, or? Yeah, after.
You can actually. You know what? That's actually my fault, because you are supposed to recite first before anything else. You're supposed to recite the first 10.
Okay.
And I skipped that part. Being zealous to get to that word. I'm on a 99. Well, anyway, yeah. So yes, we're supposed to recite first. So inshallah, we can actually rewind a little bit, reset a little bit, and then start with the recitation, because that recitation I look forward to actually every week. So Bismillah.
All right, Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي Sorry, I opened up to the wrong thing. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا صدق الله العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So I guess we jump straight to the word, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So the word rahmah, it obviously has the widely known meaning of mercy, but it can also denote friendly feeling and behavior, a state of being gracious, right? And just in case anyone doesn't understand what the word grace or graciousness is, it's essentially, the way I understand it is that it's like if somebody does something for you that you don't necessarily deserve. Not to say like in a bad way, but like, they just kind of give you something out of the kindness of their heart, not because you necessarily did anything to earn that thing, right? Anybody can correct me if I'm missing anything in that. But essentially, it's and so if we tie that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obviously that's kind of the case with pretty much everything. We didn't ask for our eyesight, right? We didn't ask for our ability to speak. We didn't ask for our limbs and all the other faculties that we have. These are things that Allah just afforded us in the womb, which we get to that womb part as well. And so the state of being kind, right? The state of expressing or feeling pity for something can also be included in the meaning of rahmah. The act of consideration or looking after someone, right? Like what a parent does, right? The state or quality of being kind, intense feeling of caring and someone, the intense feeling of caring about someone, or affection or fondness for a person, and then a whole slew of words that are close in meaning: graciousness, kindness, leniency, clemency, compassion, mercy, pity, sympathy, tenderness, gentleness, warmth, goodness, love, meekness, mercifulness, mild, affection, attachment, beauty, also emotion, excellence, and mildness. And so these are all the meanings of the word rahma itself. And as scholars like to point out often, the connection between rahma and rahim, right? Rahma, being all those things that we said, and rahim being the womb, right? Which is the womb considered an organ?
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
This is Khadija.
Khadija, you might be
Would the
more
womb be
the expert on
considered
that.
an organ per
An organ
se?
is made up of groups of tissue, so I
So
would.
groups of tissue, right? Okay, so yeah, so this, you know, the rahim or the womb is something that is unique to women, right? I.e., mothers, essentially, right? And so it's interesting there that you have all of these things like, uh, the caring about someone, affection, and all these types of, all those sort of traits, compiled in that word. These are all traits that are very important for a mother to have, and that oftentimes you will see these traits manifest more so in mothers. Not to say that fathers can't have these traits, but you guys catch my drift. And so
Right.
there's a very deep connection between the word mercy itself and the womb being a place of mercy, and tenderness and care and loving, and so on and so forth. So alhamdulillah, that's
Alhamdulillah.
a nutshell.
Interesting you say that because when you, well, I don't know if, hopefully I'm not digressing, but when Freud was thinking about the word hysterical, he said that hysteria, it had to do with the womb, and that
Mm.
women are innately well because of their womb. So that's interesting that you said that.
Mm.
So
You
in
say
my
innately well,
not well.
not well.
Hysterical. Yes, hysterical has to do with,
Oh,
because when you look at the hysteria or HYS, when you hysterectomy, anything that has to do with the womb,
right,
right?
right, right, right.
And
Mhm.
so that Freud was saying that women have like a tendency or innateness to be not well, hysterical, crazy. And so it's that's why I love Islam so much, because it's such the opposite, that we
Mm.
have that, we have a womb, and so we're welcoming and we're caring and loving, as opposed to crazy. So
Right.
yeah.
That's
All
Sigmund Freud, huh? Calling women crazy.
as
Mhm.
along with other crazy things.
Yes. So I didn't mean to digress. It was just like, it was just very, I love that. I love the fact that when people say things like that, and the thoughts that they have about Islam, of course it's, people don't make, people, well, I don't know. Well, people don't make the religion, because Islam is Islam every day, all day. Um, the people that, put a bad taste in people's mouths is, something different. But all in all, when people say something, Allah has a remedy for everything, and He has He doesn't even have to counteract it. I'm just saying that, whenever people say something, Allah has a direct, like a no, you're lying, I'm right, you're wrong, kind of a thing. So, mashallah, that was pretty interesting. I like that.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, definitely. This is a word I've been exploring a lot recently, and just like I think we use mercy in passing. You know what I mean? Mercy is like, it's cool, but it's just it's a weak word for what when you compare it to what
Right.
Rahman is. It's really weak.
Right.
We gotta have to really start using like 5-6 words at the same time whenever we
Right. Right.
explain it. just in regular talking, just to kind of
Right.
get these words a little more weight for our particular culture, because
Right.
um,
Right.
because a lot
I
of times,
couldn't
when we think of mercy, we kind of, in our vernacular, it's kind of almost like, yeah, it's almost pity. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's almost pity. Like, it's a little bit better than pity, but it's not much better than pity, right? In our
Mm.
language. And so, I just think a little bit more about, we are people who are very expressive about the heart, but when it comes to, how we explain and translate our, these words, and this is something that I'm really paying attention to a lot. We then become less. We're not as thorough with with actually, I think, exploring that depth and that love through the words that we use. But we'll use these same words. We're very wordy when it comes to, you know, how we express ourselves, especially from a Western relationship standpoint. And I'm exploring it so much is because I worry a lot about the disconnect between the heart of us and actual our deen, like as Muslims when I see it. And I you know, it's something that I really seek to be like, how can we actually solve this problem? Because I think sometimes it's a problem sometimes of communication, you know. So I don't know, it's just something that's a little thought. Anyways, we
That,
can go to say again.
so I was just gonna say I have there was a scholar that I grew up with, Rahimullah, he passed away, Brother Al Fahim Job.
Hmm.
And we would always ask him, like I was always asking him questions. I felt like I was the wise man in Musa alayhi salam, because he would always like, it's like,
Hmm.
Khadija, are you asking me another question? And I would ask him all the silly questions that they would say to us, like, if you kill something without saying Bismillah on the day of judgment, it's going to get big and it's going to step on you. Like, I would ask him all those questions and he'd be like, what? You know, so he would, but when you would ask him a question, it would be like a 5 minute dissertation. And I used to be like, oh my gosh, I'm just asking you a question. In my mind, of course, I'm saying that, not dare say that to a scholar, right? And now in my life, I understand that some things are not one worded. You can't just give something one word. And you get so much more of its richness. Like when Sidi Ashir, when he was explaining the Quran, the meaning of the Quran, I was just sitting there listening, and I'm like, man, like you don't think of everything that the word encompasses. And that's the beauty of other languages outside of English, is that, especially when someone is translating something. For instance, my daughter is a fluent Spanish reader, write, and speak Spanish. And
Hmm.
she'll say, it's more than that, mommy. It's a little more than that. So just having a depth of knowledge or a depth of insight on a word, is important,
Hmm.
especially in Islam,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
me,
Yeah.
in my, in
Yeah.
my, view, because you'll taste it more, because, and it, okay. And then I'm going to stop, because I do that in Islam. I think that the beautiful thing about when we talk about things, or when we hear descriptions of things, for the most part, it has to do with taste. It has to do with the palate, because it'll be like, like your tongue should be wet with this, or you should do this, or, taste, the punishment of the fire. There's so much that has to do with the lingual,
Hmm.
sense of things,
Hmm.
in Islam. And I think even in explaining something with that, there's so much more to the one word that we have to give it its justice, so that we understand it thoroughly, and we practice to the best of our ability.
Right. No, it's true. And then when you and then combine that, I think because of the other side of that, and maybe what you speak to a little bit, and what happens, and this is why I think, and this is where, inshallah, where I would love to see Ashir go. I'm gonna keep putting this little seed here, but because I think Ashir actually has a really good natural talent for it. Is also on the other side of that is also when you're explaining with the words that you are using are straight, direct, to the point, and relatable, as opposed to distant. Because sometimes when people on the opposite side of that coin, and we get into these intellectual, debate, not debates, but actual conversations, and then people literally competing to go over the other one's head, or competing to
Right.
show how much they know. And that the problem with that is that just serves as another way to disconnect,
Yeah.
right? Right. So
Yep.
Right.
so so where so when you actually because when you think about it, and you actually start learning. I just learned a little teeny bit of Arabic, but the other great thing about it is it's very direct, very straight and to the point. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And very, very specific, right? Very specific, very direct, straight to the point. Not distant, not far, right? And I think Ashir, that's what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is kind of giving you, naturally, when you when you explain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe you might like look at some other people and you might say, well, you know, this person is this, but that's one of the things that I think it's something that just comes with certain people.
Honestly, some of that is just I'm not able to speak on that level.
But see, that's what you're saying. It's so funny. You notice how you said that level, right?
Yeah,
But there's a level at which, like, sometimes, and I'm one of those people who love intellectual pursuits. I love to talk intellectually. I love to have
right, right,
high level discussions and all that. But I also understand that there's a place for that. And that
right,
place is actually not a lot of times when we're explaining things when we're trying to get to people's hearts.
right.
That's the funny thing. It's actually not. There's a time for that. It's just not actually when you're actually trying to talk to people where you're trying to touch their hearts. That's all. You know
Yes,
what I mean? So and in that way, I would say that the honest people who have that capacity also understand that there are people who have a level, because that's also a level, in an ability to speak direct and
mm,
to say something without saying a whole lot of words, but say it very, very in a very deep way. Of course, we know the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu didn't, when he gave answers, they weren't these long, drawn out, you know, discussions. He was very short to the point, but everything was in it. Like everything was there, right?
yes,
And
yes,
you understood what he was saying, whether you were super literate and intellectual, and it was deep to you, and you understood what he was saying. What he's saying, if you were uneducated, right?
right.
And that's
The
a
part. Yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no,
Go
no, no,
ahead.
no. Then that's something. Sorry. No, please continue.
No, I
Please.
was just saying, and that's a skill too.
Mm,
That's actually a skill that a lot of times people. So we need both. But that's
yes.
a skill and that sometimes people who may sometimes go. That's just their brain works in a very technical way. They don't understand how to do that. So that's a level two. Just
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I feel you. I feel you. No,
Yeah.
and the Prophet ﷺ, people don't understand. Like his speeches were like mad short. Like I think the longest speech he probably gave, at least one of, was the Khutbatul Wada, the last sermon,
Hmm.
which if you were to read it out from start to finish, I don't even think the joint's like 5 minutes. Like for real, like and his khutbahs were like basically that long, like that 3 to 5 minutes, basically. And
Short
so
football, long recitation, right?
yeah, exactly. And so now I understand why some masajid, some imams or khatibs choose to do longer khutbahs and stuff because of the nature of our society being one where uh engaging the masjid or masjid life is not as rich as predominantly Muslim countries. But again, we still got to be kind of like balanced with that too. You don't
Balance.
want to say too much,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But you also don't want to say too little because it's kind of like their weekly dose, you know what I mean? Like, and so you kind of want to be, have a little more substance. But I think that's where the skill that you talk about comes in. But I think one, and I don't say this to like both, but I think something that has helped me be able to speak more straightforward is teaching young people.
Yeah.
You can't talk like that to young people. It doesn't matter, how you feel about anything. If you're talking to young people, like
Yeah.
you have to just use simplified language. Otherwise, you might as well speak to them in some foreign language that they don't speak. You know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
so, and so I
Absolutely.
think, and I had to teach them Islamic studies. So I was forced, like in the beginning of teaching, I was forced essentially to kind of reword like everything that I had like been taught, you know what I'm saying, to be able to explain it in such a way that they could understand it. Another thing I had to do was I would do khutbahs sometimes at the Islamic school, and at grades as young as second grade would be in the crowd. And so I had to make sure that I addressed the second graders when I was saying what I was saying. And so I would have to, water it down a little bit every so often and explain like the bigger words that I used, and so on and so forth. And I eventually started to like that challenge to like figure these things out, because I enjoyed communicating with them, because I would see, when I would use the more simplified language, they perked up and started paying. Oh, okay, I know what you're saying. Like, I know what he's saying. I get it. I understand what he's saying. And then once in a while, I'll dedicate a whole khutbah to them and say, forget the rest of y'all. This is for the kids. You know what I mean? And so I'm doing that. That was always nice.
Yeah.
Education, we call that differentiated learning.
Yes, I'm very familiar and not that good at it.
Well, I mean, and, when you really think about it, our religion is based on the reminder, and the reminder, is usually a very basic thing, repetition and reminder. All right, so inshallah, let's go ahead and go to recitation. So Khadija, you want to go ahead and go first?
Okay. Yes, always.
Inshallah.
I'm going to try to read further. So let's see what we do with this. Inshallah. Bismillah.
Inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين.
So you want to make sure that either you stop, like do a full pause and then like continue, or just go through straight through, as opposed to pausing in that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe repeat.
Okay. Bismillah. Why? قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا.
You don't want to stretch the ra either. You don't want to say قيما لينذر بأسا. قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا.
قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا
من لدنه. بأسا شديدا. This is إخفاء.
Yeah. قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين.
Okay, so you don't want to stretch the من لدنه. من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين. قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين.
قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين.
Yes. Now the last thing is min ladunhu as opposed to min ladunhu. You don't want to say the noon because this is idgham without ghunna. So
and you said that before. You said it before.
No, it's fine. It's all.
خيما لينذر بأسا. SubhanAllah. قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين.
Just go back and say ويبشر المؤمنين.
ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا.
ماكثين فيه أبدا. Short noon. ماكثين فيه أبدا.
ماكثين فيه أبدا. Like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ له ولدا.
وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا.
وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا.
قالوا اتخذ الله، وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله، قالوا اتخذ الله.
قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا.
قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا.
قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا.
قالوا اتخذ الله.
قالوا اتخذ الله.
with shadda on that lam. قالوا اتخذ الله.
قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا.
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 أيوة، الحمد لله، جزاك الله خيرا.
Whoever's out there, you can do it. You can do it. صدق الله العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
All right. Bismillah. See how we go.
Oh, stop. You got it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا.
Maybe a little more غنة. إن
يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخئ نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا. إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا.
Less bounce on the ba and لنبلوكم. You want to avoid making it sound like a haraka. لنبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا.
لنبلوهم.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. وَإِنَّا لَجَاعِلُونَ مَا عَلَيْهَا صَعِيدًا جُرُزًا. أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَالرَّقِيمِ كَانُوا من آياتنا عجبا. إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا.
Repeat that ayah.
إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا
إلى الكهف.
إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة.
من لدنك. This is إخفاء, holding that noon sound before that kaf.
من لدنك رحمة. فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من
وهيئ لنا
من أمرنا رشدا.
الحمد لله. بارك الله فيك.
Thank you for getting me to 10. I hope there's been, actually, I will say, I think there's been definitely a lot of improvement since 1, right? Inshallah.
Absolutely.
Right?
No, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
SubhanAllah. Just going through these 10 once a week, right? SubhanAllah. So really, really appreciate that.
We're gonna keep going with this, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to, inshallah, but we're gonna move to the surah that everyone has to recite in their salah, Fatiha, inshallah, after this. But today we did 10, and we're going to continue to be on our path to remember. And I pretty much remember. Actually, that's the other thing. Alhamdulillah, almost memorized it pretty much, as well, going through this process. And so that's kind of cool too. But obviously, memorizing it the right way is a different thing. So, so we want to go to reflection, inshallah. So I know that. So inshallah, if you want to go ahead, Khadija, you have a reflection on 10.
We kind of did it last week, but because we did 9 and 10 together about the men and the youth in the cave, and then it had the dua inside of it. So it was, hold on, I'm sorry. So it was, remember when those youth took refuge in the cave and said, "Our Lord, grant us mercy from yourself and guide us rightly through our ordeal." I mean, the only reflection I have on that is that they had complete tawakkul, in my view. Hopefully, again, whenever I'm wrong, say it, because they just trusted that they were going to be okay. They trusted it, and they validated that by adding a dua to it. That no matter what was going on, that he'll have mercy on them, regardless of what they were going through. And so I know when I read that, I was thinking about just everything that I went through, everything that people go through. And I don't think we had, me, I know that I'm working toward having that much trust. So I'm learning, of course, with my business of helping people to heal, that there are 3 things that, and on an Islamic basis, if I'm wrong, you can give me insight on that as well, but there are 3 things that grow shame: silence, judgment, and secrecy. And so we tend to just, I'm saying that to say that I'm usually like, it's like you feel like ashamed to say that you're not like that trusting. And so when you keep that to yourself, then you're not able to come out of that feeling. And so that's why I tend to try to be transparent with certain things. I know certain things you hold to yourself, but especially when we're talking to a crowd of people, that I want people to know I'm not perfect, and I know that people know that, but I'm not perfect, and I have a hard time with completely trusting that it's going to be okay. And so that's why a lot of times I'll say, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. And when I walk out the door, I say, Bismillahi tawakkaltu ala Allah wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I mean, because I have to put that in there, because you don't, as a human being, we fear the unknown. And
Right.
so
Yes.
with the people, with these youths, they trusted and they went to sleep. Like, I'm so terrified of spiders. So I'm thinking, like, whenever I read that, I'm like, they went to sleep and there could have been spiders in there, something like, no, 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 no. No, sir. No, I'm not doing that. And
Yeah.
so, but they trusted that Allah was going to have mercy on them and he was going to guide them through ordeal that they had to go through.
Yeah. MashaAllah. Yeah, I would definitely, I think last week we kind of focused on the miracle of the cave, and so I think in this one, I think it's good to lead with trust, because that's a big deal. And the fact that, I think, to add to that, just the fact that, that sometimes retreat is necessary. Like, literally, a retreat is necessary. Sometimes, and the one thing I've been thinking about a lot with this deen is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests different people differently depending on what their inclination is. So, in the case of Yunus, he was supposed to stay. In the case of Lut, he had to go. In the case of the young people in the cave, and they weren't prophets, but Allah mentions them, they had to retreat into a place where Allah would give them a little bit of respite, and then he would decide what would happen to them after that. And then, as a matter of fact, we go later into the surah, and he talks about how they had to disguise themselves so they could keep their deen, because of their so their environment was so toxic that that they needed to get a way out. First of all, what they asked Allah. So, in keeping what you said, that they started with the trust. They asked Allah first, and this is, like you said, it's the same thing I think we can all do, especially in this fast moving life. And Lord knows, you were talking to me about how much I do, and the fact, I do a lot, right? But that means that I have to constantly be aware of making sure I make dua before I do something, anything, anything, because there's always going to be a better, even if there is what seemingly would be an outcome that might not be what I want. I think that dua makes you feel a little bit better about the fact that there's going to be a resolution even after that, right? But then also that it's okay sometimes that if you don't feel like you're in a place where, okay, you know what, where you actually can do much and your deen is suffering, then you can retreat. That maybe you should retreat and then ask Allah to find a way for you, right? And Allah, in almost every case, the concept of retreating, the concept of, going and finding a place where you can kind of get your bearings on what you need to do to worship Allah. We find that repeatedly. We find that theme repeatedly, right, in different ways. And so that's the other thing. Don't be hard on people when we see them retreating too, because sometimes we see people and we haven't seen them in a while, and it could be that they're saving themselves and their soul, and we're like, well, where you been, and such. Make sure, because a lot of times, a lot of us are going through a lot, especially in this world, and we have to be in each other's face, and we don't even have, like, I don't know, we live in Baltimore, like, maybe it's a little bit better out in Memphis, man, but in Baltimore we live in a concrete jungle where we don't see trees, we don't see mountains, we don't see a lot of Allah's great nature and that type of thing regularly. So we got to be in each other's face all the time, and we got to be around these things that really, to be honest, don't contribute to our spirit, right? And that weighs on you. That weighs on you too, man. Sometimes you just got to get away, right, and just sit there and be with Allah. Like, what do you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I think that when you look at the people of the cave and how Allah said, Allah basically, I look at that and it's really profound, because it's like Allah looked at the fact that at their desire, they had such a desire to worship Him that they left. You know what I'm saying? They left whatever it was and said, listen, I don't know what to do, but can you please help us? And Allah gave them a miracle, right? That's profound to me. That's profound to me. So, I think that, and I think we can relate to that. More people can relate to that more, where, do that. But when you retreat, what do? You make sure you ask Allah, because some of us, sometimes the opposite side of that coin of retreating is that sometimes we retreat into bad habits as a result of our depression, as a result of our pain. We retreat into bad habits and it's the same reason. Like, we're depressed, we have pain, we have other things, and so, but have bad habits, and we use those as excuses often. We're like, well, something else happened, so I'm gonna do this. You know what I'm saying? And that's saving my deen. But no, make sure that you ask Allah first, so that He can find a way before you. If you end up feeling like you got to do something you ain't got no business doing, you know what I'm saying? Don't forget. So that's a big time message for me.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're picking up. I don't really have much of a reflection. Y'all reflections. Y'all did it with that.
Alhamdulillah.
But just so the word tawakkul, it has like these. There's another word that's close to it that basically means the opposite. Well, it means the same thing, but done in two different ways, I should say, right? So you have tawakkul, right? Since you were talking about how they had this tawakkul on Allah, you have tawakkul, and then you have tawakkul, right? Tawakkul is, as you understood it, as you explained it, right? Is having reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? With action. So they did something about it, right? Those young people in the cave, they didn't just sit around and complain. Oh, society's like this. Oh, everybody's after me. Oh, woe to me, woe to me. They was like, all right, this is a situation. All right, let's get up out of here. Let's do something. They ain't just sit in the middle, in the lion's den and just say, oh, I'm gonna rely on Allah, right? And whatever happens to me. No, they bounced. Like, they did something. That's action. So this is a reliance on Allah with action. And then tawakkul is feigning reliance on Allah because you're claiming it, but you're not actually doing anything, right? So
that's why we got to pronounce words right. I had to say that real quick. All right, go
ahead. Right. And so and because it's so close, right? It's so close. Yeah. So tawakkul without that shadda on the kaf and adding that alif after the waw. This is having reliance on Allah with no action. So you're saying, oh, Allah, please bless me with a job, but you're sitting around on your couch watching Netflix, HBO Go, and Hulu, you know what I'm saying, blowing money that you don't even have because you're working and you broke. So yeah, but you're not doing anything to get that on your own. Oh, Allah, increase me in my love for Quran. What are you doing? Increase me in my love for Quran. Hold on, my iTunes. I'm not giving people who listen to music. I mean, listen to your music, but like, if you want Allah to, bless you with a closer relationship with the Quran, like, do something, like incorporate the Quran in your daily life, and Allah will, assist you in that journey in terms of allowing it to penetrate your heart more. Sit around and say, oh, Allah, make me love Quran more, but your whole entire life is everything but. Come on, like, what I'm saying? Or Allah, increase me in iman, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what I was just kind of thinking about.
That's a really good balance, mashallah. Very needed, because sometimes that is what we do. We'll say these things, but you're right. Pick up a shovel. Pick up a shovel, right? So Brother Ali always. I remember Brother Ali said, he said he had this quote. I'm not gonna say because it wasn't for this particular show. But the point is, he was like, pick up a shovel, man. You can't just sit there and be like, I'm sitting here in all this dirt, and what was me? And the shovel sitting right beside you, and you're not, picking up the shovel. You gotta pick up the shovel too. Right. I think to dig yourself else right there. So this is very, very important reminder. Jazakallah khair for that.
I used to always say, I always used to because from little, I would always, I wanted to be that person who was able to recite the Quran where, like people were crying or, that I just knew it. And I would always from little ask Allah to invite me to, and I didn't even know I was saying something, to invite me to learn the Quran in wholeness, because and then I had this I have this goal of saving my family from the fire. So I mean, I'm not laughing, I'm just saying, I'm from single digits, I was like, I'm going to be Hafiz so I can go, you get a pass, you get, like, I wanted to always get that pass, but there was no action to it. And then in my adulthood, I would always, every time in my salat, I would ask Allah, invite me to learn the Quran. And now I say it, and now I understand that there's an action to it. 47 years, and I understand that there's an action to it. And so even with the struggles I have, and it seems like, and this is for the people out there too, every time I go to another ayah, every time I go to another one, it is so hard. Like, it's like, why won't you come out? Why won't you? And I, like with Khalil, I'm actually memorizing as I'm going along, because I say it so many, and I make it a habit, like I told you last week, to say it after every salat. I make my intention, and I listen to it too. I listen to Husri. I listened to him. My sister told me to listen to him, and so I listened to him every single time. Like, I'll listen, and so I'm trying to get that, so that it becomes close to me. But I mean, I wouldn't be, you have to be, it's just like when you ask to be invited to Mecca, and you have all these bills, but you keep on piling the bills up. Like, you're asking him to invite you to make Hajj, but you keep on going out and buying all this stuff, and you're not taking care of your affairs. So I understand that now, and what you said, it just, it hit it right on the nail. So barakallahu fi.
No, and I think that I think that what happens with us, especially our people, we want the result. I think what happens is two things. Like, we want to be good right away. We want, and this is why, that I try to always emphasize that Allah has actually given us a pathway in that we can, even if we're not pronouncing correctly, that He'll reward us double for the effort, right? To speak to that thing, because we want to be good, right? We want that immediate gratification. If we don't get that feeling that we got it right away, then a lot of times we'll stop, right? But gold has to be digged for, right? Gold has to be dug for, often very deep down in the ground. And we're talking about like the greatest gold there is, and that is the lost revelation, right? So it's a lifelong journey to the core, right? To the core, right? And so, and it's okay to not, it's okay to not be the best in the beginning, or to be quite honest, to never be the best. Because you can always be the best in effort, And I always, Kobe Bryant recently died, but one thing about Kobe was really profound. If anyone who wants to go look at his motivational videos, one thing he talks about is effort. It was all about his effort. This man's getting up 3, 4 in the morning. He wanted to be the best basketball player there was. He wasn't the most talented either. He made himself the most talented. He was talented, but he wasn't the most talented. But his effort was second to none, right? So again, that reminder about effort matters, because that does happen, a lot with us, where we're like, yeah, I want to do this, and I'm doing this, and it reminds me of, it's just scary, because a lot of, I ask the believers, why do you do not what you say, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he's talking to believers. He's asking believers. And he says,
that's like, that's
not,
like with,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, because I was getting ready. I thought you were done.
No, I was just saying, he it's like abominables that you do not what you say. It's not small, so when we say something, we better,
Exactly.
When we say, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and that's why, like I said, I appreciate. There's been some times where I got up in the morning, even with this, and was like, "Whoo, man, I don't know, I'm not feeling best," but alhamdulillah, and I know Ashir, because we are, because we businessmen, family men, kid, all that stuff, and not getting enough sleep and all that stuff. That's why I say, for you, man, I really appreciate you, as a teacher, I'm coming on and and deciding to do this with us. You know what I'm saying? This, no matter how many people, whether it's a lot or whether it's a little, may Allah reward you immensely. I know I make a lot of dua for you and your family. You know what I'm saying? For that, really appreciate it, brother.
Well, yeah.
Um,
This is the push that I needed to do something of benefit consistently.
yeah, yeah.
And that's why, I saw this as an opportunity um, to be able to do that because I've been wanting to, and I've been seeing, so many things. People, especially when COVID hit, everything went online, and people doing things, and I said, I want to contribute with whatever little bit I have, but I was afraid. I was afraid to jump out there and start something
Mm,
out of fear that I wouldn't be consistent. And
mm,
so when you called me to do this, I was like,
mm.
it was just kind of like while I was on the phone with you, I just kind of decided in my head, I was like, Ashir, just do this joint, man. Just do it and just commit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't fight it. Don't make no bunch of excuses. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop being scared of the commitment. Commit to that. Because I was like, he was like, after Fudger. I was like, after Fudger. I was like, oh man. I was like, this dude is wild. And he want to do it every week. I was like, can we start off with once a month? Like, I was like, this guy's tripping, man. But then I was like, nah, man, that's how you gotta do it, man. Go hard or go home, bro. You know what I'm saying? And so, alhamdulillah, this is the push that I needed. And out of this came my podcast.
Kind of podcast, mashallah. Well, that's
Like
beautiful.
I wouldn't like because this is is a podcast esque vibe to it, right? And
Yeah,
it's
it's true.
it's
It's true.
weekly, you know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, I think I can do this
Yeah,
because
yeah.
before this, like I podcast, I was like, nah, I'm not a podcaster, But after this, I was like, I think I can do this. So alhamdulillah, now I got a podcast. I'll reward you.
Alhamdulillah.
You know what I'm saying? Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, man. And the stuff you're exploring, man, it's dope, man. I gotta tune in because you got these different guests and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, that's dope, man. I'm not gonna reveal it till you reveal it, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, but it's super dope. I know. So to tell the people again about today. Tell the people about today. What's happening today?
Yes. Today we having Imam Wesley LeBron, inshallah, come on and talk about the growing Muslim community, so the growing Latino community within the Muslim community. So like basically Latinos are, I called him when I set up when I was trying to set this episode up. I called him to ask him a question about that because I noticed that Latinos are coming into Islam in droves, and so I was like, what's the deal with that? And so he told me some things, and I was like, you know what, we can just discuss it on the podcast. And so pretty much 95% of what he's going to discuss, I have not discussed with him beforehand. So I'm going to be learning along with everybody the whole time. And I'm really not going to be talking a whole lot. I got some questions lined up, but the way that, I plan to have my podcast is more like I'm learning too. And so, that I noticed in like the interview world, they have this thing about not letting your guests dominate. Right. And so you get these people like cutting their guests off because you're not supposed to let the guest, ain't with all that. Speak, bro. Speak, sis. Like say what you need to say for as long as you need to say it. I brought you on here to learn from you. And that's one thing that I just kind of want to make it clear about that is that the whole intention is to learn, to grow.
Yeah.
Like I'm not getting on a podcast to flex anything. I'm trying to speak as least as possible, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
And so I want to turn the platform, and then I even want to do, inshallah, I'm gonna I want to do a sort of like a series of like takeovers where I allow a certain group of people to just take over my podcast. I bring them on, I introduce them, and I remove myself from the equation. I'll just do the producing from the background with the screens and all that stuff. And that's it. So have a women's takeover, get some sisters on, talk about Quran and with women, and I'm out of here. Get the Latino, Muslims hop on and do the whole podcast in Spanish, like, and I'm out of here. You know what I'm saying? And youth, get some youth up there, introduce them. I'm out of here. Talk what y'all gonna talk about. This podcast is not about flexing at all. It's all about learning. And so that's what I hope from the guests as well, is that they come to learn, inshallah.
Right.
So tonight at 6, Imam Wesley LeBron is going to be discussing the Islam and the Latino community and their growing love for Islam and what it is that's causing them to come to Islam, like in such high numbers, mashallah.
Mashallah, yeah. I can't wait for to hear more with that too, because I one of the things I've noticed, I don't know if you've seen, like I find that every group of people have a perspective that adds to our understanding as a human race, as a human population. So I find there's almost a signature that you can find with different ethnic groups, whether they be African Americans, whether they be Desis, whether they be Arabs. You find a signature. And I would love, like, I'm so curious to know what the signature is of the Latino people, what their perspective is, what that signature is, what that pattern is, and how they explain what they get from the Quran. Well, things like that I would love to hear, because I love to learn from other people, because it always, what happens is you always find, with the way that you're thinking about this, you're onto something, and so, I'd love, I can't wait to hear that and more, inshallah.
Right. Likewise. Yeah. And he's a convert himself. So he's talking firsthand. Like, this is what, as a Latino, this is what drew me to Islam. And then he does dawah, like heavy dawah in the Latino community. He's the head of like the, what is it? Por qué Islam? Why Islam? And like the Spanish, I don't know what they call it, but like he runs their whole, like, sort of Hispanic program for like why Islam. So he's behind all of that. So he's all up in there. He knows the psychology. He knows the culture of the people. He knows what to say, what not to say. I want all of that.
Yeah.
Ask him about the whole concept of Latinx and the way that people are being identified today.
I want to know that you said that, bro. We had that conversation just last night.
Really?
I was getting ready to say that. Yep. I was about to say that.
We need to know, man, because I hate offending people. You know what I'm saying? So we need to know.
Right. No, we just, and it's funny that you said to ask him that, because it came up. He addressed it, but I wasn't sure if asking him that would put him on the spot or not.
Yeah.
So let's see.
You gotta do it, because
we need to know.
Yes. So my two younger,
go ahead.
Yes. My two younger children went to an IB school, so an international baccalaureate school. So the premise of that is really student-centered learning, is to teach them critical thinking, building their conflict skills within themselves. And so a lot of their learning is student-centered. And so really the educator is really just the facilitator to redirect, if you will, back to the conversation. I haven't seen it done quite right yet, but I'm listening to how you're doing your podcast, and that's exactly what it is student-centered learning. And even how you do Quran with us, you let us start reading, and then you interject where needed. You don't start off by saying, this is how you say it. Of course, you start with the recitation, because we need to hear the recitation in its entirety and as perfect as we can humanly get it. But really what you're doing is you are really reshaping inshallah, you're reshaping what people see as an interviewer, because you're going to put, for instance, you have a subject. The subject is up, and now the person who's being interviewed now has he takes the reins. So you don't ride him through this thing. He's taking that ride, and then you give him the reins, and you sit back and you let him do what he does. Because you don't know about Latinx, you don't know about that, but you do know what you have to do to get that conversation started. So establishing that conversation, is good. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I want to hear that, because I don't want to be offensive and say Latinx, because some people may say that's just a social construct that they have. That's not what we say. That's what they say. So, really beginning to understand, how sometimes things are put on us and we don't want them on us. Well, I don't know if this is a good example, but I know one time I was watching Oprah, and she said that when she used to interview Robin Williams, she had a slew of questions. She never got past like the fourth question, because Robin Williams was who he was. And so she said she stopped writing questions for him and she just let him go, which to me, even though she has good interviews, his interviews were the best with her, because she understood that he marched to his own beat. And so she said, she was like, I stopped writing questions for him and I just kind of let him go. So how you're doing that, and I'm not saying any way is wrong or right, because again, with differentiated learning, some people can learn. I can learn inside the box. I can play the game, until it needs to be played. But my two younger daughters, they rage against the machine. And if you tell them that they have to learn something a certain way, they're like, oh, then I won't learn it at all. How about that? Until the person says, okay, well, how do you, of course they don't literally say it, but I mean, they say it, and Tawaka, they say it in their actions, like, oh, okay, well then, nope, not going to learn trigonometry, sorry. But when she gets an instructor that's like, okay, so Rabia, let's see what you and then she goes, you really are interested in how I want to learn? And then she starts going at it, like just kind of ripping through it. So, I'm always wordy. I always try not to be, but, but just the way you're doing this podcast, I am so excited, because I love that. I love to see, the person have that opportunity to just have that conversation, and then you jump in where you jump in, as opposed to them trying to jump in and they have the knowledge,
Right. Yeah. It's like, that's the whole point is, getting people who are authorities, both authorities in certain fields that we can tie to Quran, right? Because the idea is that, more than just scholars have connections with the Quran. Everyday people have connections with the Quran. Allah, He bestows this, blessing upon more than just scholars. And so, what is your relationship with the Quran like as a teacher? What is your relationship with the Quran like as a person working in finance? What informs what you do as a person in permaculture? Like what informs your, and so all these, so I'm just like identifying these people and asking them to come on and talk about it's their own personal thing. Like, how much can I actually say about it? Like, you gotta stay in your lane.
Yeah. Another question real quick, just in case I don't want to forget, is Huda asked, she said to ask them if there's a particular city where there's a higher percentage. So I don't know if you can remember to ask that too, about the places where there's the highest percentage of Hispanic, Latino Muslims. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, he would definitely. I think he would definitely have that data, because he's that organization is a national organization, and he's one of the founders of Islam in Spanish. So they're working with the whole Latin world, not even just in America. They they're like on Telemundo and like you know what I mean, like the whole nine. You know what I mean? And so he would definitely have that. So tell Sister Huda, hop on the podcast, ask the question, and I will ask. But that's a good question. I do like that question. And then Sister Farasha, Please
Hmm.
correct me if I said it. Which one is the right one? Farasha? I'm thinking Farasha.
Hmm.
She said, where do we find it? What's it called? It's called Measured Tones Podcast with Adrian Ashir Kirk. And so you can find it right on my Measured Tones page where you are right now. The same page, it'll go live just like this video is going live, inshallah, tonight at 6. And now one more thing that I'm doing, and I don't know if it's gonna work for or against me, but I'm also not setting like days and times per se.
Got you.
I'm basically because I want my guests to be comfortable,
Hmm.
and so I am a lot. I'm working with their schedule. The only thing I'm gonna do is it's gonna have a frequency in terms of it's gonna be once a month for now, and then inshallah, once I'm able to pull away from some other things, I'll up it maybe twice a month and so on. But when I'm contacting the guest, I'm saying, okay, what works for you within this particular time frame, because I don't want them to have to hop off because I got something else going on at the
Yeah.
same time and it's overlapping and the woo woo woo. So it's not
Yeah.
going to be Fridays every time, Saturday every time, Sunday
Yeah.
every time. It might be whatever. It's going to be whatever they want. So it's not going to be a particular day in time. Just so everybody knows it's going to switch up. So it's not going to be necessarily something you could always fix into something until I can figure out a way to better maybe manage that. And so I'm still learning, but I
Okay.
So
figured
they have to
that,
turn on. So they have to turn on their notification.
yeah, it gotta be a
That
notification
notification.
thing. But then they're all recorded. So push come to shove, you miss one of them,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go back.
And a good thing is it's podcast. So if you sign into the whatever your podcast listening platform is, right? They'll know where the other one is. But then you can have signups and stuff like that. So inshallah, that actually I think that's a cool thing. That's a cool thing too. As long as people, will know ahead of time. I wanted to, you spoke. I did want to ask one thing though, because you mentioned something. That I think for me has been a thing that has actually, kind of burned me up a little bit. You talked about the differences of people, the different people and how they have relationships with the Quran. And one of the things that we've heard a lot since I was a child was, this statement that a person who I think does music or listens to music cannot have Quran and music in this. It can't be in the same heart, right? Right. I don't know if you've heard that statement
Yeah,
before,
no,
right?
that was something I haven't just heard that statement. I lived that statement.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, I lived it.
so tell me, so talk a little bit about, so tell me about that journey, because like for me, all I know is that for me, like as a person who, I do music, right? But for me, I'm like, I don't think I would be living if Quran wasn't in my heart some kind of way. I'd be Walking Dead. Right? I'd literally be the Walking Dead. Like that's how much
Right.
the Quran
No,
has
I
contributed to me.
don't.
But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think that it means like you can't, like if you consume music on any level at all whatsoever,
Right.
like then you won't be able to connect with the Quran. That's not how I necessarily understand it. But it's a thing of um so my experience was whenever I would listen to like a lot of music, it was difficult for me to engage the Quran if I had too much music on my mind. So like when I was in Morocco, there was a point in time where I don't know what was happening, but I had came across some like Lupe song or something, Lupe Fiasco.
Hmm.
And that's my dude, like, and it was like the beat was tough, he's tough, like, and so I'm just like, listen, and it just I have this thing about me that when I latch on to something, like I can, like, I
Oh.
might listen to the thing like 10 times, right? And so I did that. I just kind of listened to it on repeat because I was just like, so like, man, this joint is so fire. And then I caught myself and I was like, oh man, Ashir, you doing a little too much. Like you gotta slow it down, right? And so I was like, let me read some Quran. So I cut it off like cold turkey, and I picked up the Mus'haf, and it was just like nothing.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
couldn't, I couldn't, like, I could, it was like I was faking, you know? But I couldn't even fake. Like, I was just like, I need to kind of drain this out of my system first.
Yeah.
Like kind of give myself some time. Like I couldn't go from music to Quran like right after. I couldn't do
Yeah.
it because at that moment, that song was what was consuming my heart,
Yeah.
essentially. Like I was so into it and it was so just like, oh, this is, and then and so I needed time. That was me. Now maybe some people can do that. But yeah, I personally like I've I can't do it, you know. I
Right.
have to have space like
But you
between.
know that, but see, what you're saying is very different. You know, it's than what a lot of people understand. Like this is what you're saying is a much more nuanced thing, because
Yeah,
where other people literally say this to actually say, okay, that's the reason why you never listen, right? What you're saying, and for me, for example, I don't have that issue. Like it doesn't affect me at all, really. And the funny thing is that I do it, but music doesn't affect me in that way. I do know people who it does, like literally people who have literally stopped. But I always say, I always tell people that's an individual. What you said is kind of what I tell people. It's an individual thing. Like if it's stopping you, then choose Quran all day. Like don't choose music over. Don't ever do that. If that's how it affects you, right? But it's like but even the way you framed it, which is interesting, you said space, which is I kind of the first time I've heard that one, right? I've heard some people who say, when I stopped, I've heard people who say, I've even heard people who say, you know what, I hadn't listened to a while. So when I listened to music, it relieved me, and then I could go back and then I started Quran, and I was relieved because I had been away. So it wasn't about listening to music that opened them up to Quran. What happened was their stress. So music helped them de-stress, and then they were able to deal with the Quran. So I've heard that. I've heard multiple, which is why for me it's kind of like, again, you're talking about your podcast and engaging different people who are different, right, with how they engage, right? And this subject obviously is one of those subjects where it's a hot topic, right? And people are still talking about it to this day, and some people literally contend that it takes you away, period. If you have it, period, it's a done deal. You're not going to do that. Yeah, I know musicians who are hafiz as well, literally hafiz of Quran, right? And so for me, I think for me, I guess my conclusion has been that it isn't. The warnings are necessary. You have to be careful with it. It's like anything else, moderation. Don't be excessive, right? But it's an individual thing. You know what I'm saying? If it's not good for you, don't do it, right? But you mentioned something about space. So is that what you do? So is that your personal pattern? If you could give people some advice, like is that what, if people are having problems, is that what you do? You kind of like, okay, when it's time to engage in that way, that's what you do. You don't deal with it at that time. Like what's your
right.
kind of personal pattern?
So so at that time I was at a place where, so I was very specific in my dua about my relationship with music.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't I didn't ask Allah to like totally remove my love for all forms of music. I specifically asked Allah to remove like filthy music, the love of
Mm.
filthy music from my heart. Music that was not beneficial in any way, shape, or form, did not have a positive message. And so that stuff, that profanity ridden music, raunchy, inappropriate music, um, just random, love songs, and like people just talking about their relationships, and even if it's not vulgar, just like I don't, I really don't, I just want to, I'm okay with like something that's uplifting, spiritual, motivational, and things like that. Something that, I could learn something, some about, some history in there somewhere or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Religious, obviously, right? Religious music like yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so Allah, I mean, Allah answered the dua. I asked, I said, "Ya Allah, please like remove my," because the thing is that, especially I was at the time I was memorizing Quran, and so I was like, this is just not, it's not appropriate for me to be
Yeah.
consuming this stuff and be trying to memorize Quran. Like I can't be trying to memorize Quran and then I'm turning around talking about, trick that, this and do this and the drugs and the killing and the deep womanizing and this and that and all that kind of stuff. Like that's not even like, come on now. And so I would say more so the thing that definitely cannot exist in the heart is a love for that kind of music and Quran. Like you cannot have that. You cannot have that filthy stuff in your heart and expect Quran to actually be able to penetrate at the level that it can. Now, if it is penetrating on some level, you're not getting the fullness of it. You're not getting the fullness of it with that stuff in there. So if you were to clear that out, I believe you would probably get more benefit. But yeah, my dua was very specific. And so I say more so like, yeah, I would say give it some space and not overindulge. And like what you said, definitely at the end of the day, give your preference in the majority of your time to the Quran. If
Vain, and I will say this, I would say even my journey, because what you just said, I actually think is vain talk. Like this is what it's just coming in the form of music, which is more powerful, which can be more harmful when you're listening to vain talk, and it comes with and someone told me once, and I agree with this person, basically was saying that the one thing about music is it does go direct. It's almost like it goes directly to your bloodstream and right to your. So it does have the ability to carry whatever message is giving you and penetrate you directly. So you do have to be careful. And I do agree. And the funny thing about what you said is that that's actually very similar dua to what I made. Because when I was younger, I was enamored with all that stuff. And when I got older, I say, I have to get this stuff out of my system. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can't have that regularly in my system, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say every once in a while, every once in a blue moon, it gives me a reminiscent thing. You know what I'm saying? I ain't going to say that, right? It does. Right. But I don't, but you know what I'm saying? Cause it's just when I grew up, when you grew up on something, but it is not nearly, and I don't even desire it. Like it almost feels now because I've been away from it for so long. I don't even desire it. And when I hear it, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool, but I can't be this. This not something I'm going to stay. It's almost like food that you eat that is bad for you when you're addicted to it. When you're into like sugar, like people talk about how when they get off the sugar, at first they fiend for it, but then after a while, they're like, this is way too sweet. Now they don't want the sugar anymore, the stuff with the sugar in it, because it's like they didn't realize how sweet it was and how oversaturated it was with sugar. Right. And I think that's I think that is an important thing. And as a person, like I said, as a person who literally, has like I probably got like 6 albums that are released and about 3 or 4 more that are not, right? But the truth is that I will say this, as I have evolved and grown as a human being and gotten more into my Quran, and this is what I actually find. The more you get into your Quran, the more actually you have less of a desire to rely on other things, right? And that to me that makes sense, because think about it, people are non-Muslim, and then they read the Quran even in English and it touches their heart. They're like, I want to become Muslim. So obviously the word is more powerful than the music, right? So sometimes like literally one of the things I think also is that as you become more determined to put in your spirit that which is good, what happens over time from a stage standpoint is you desire it less. You desire the other stuff less, because it just, now it also does involve fasting. I do think fasting is involved, meaning you have to get away from the thing that, that's not good for you, for you to see how bad it is for you. And so taking breaks, as, I think Huda said that in the chat as well, taking breaks does matter. Like you should take breaks from pretty much everything just to assess to see whether it's good for you or not. So, but I like that. I like that, that concept of, what you're saying is that at the end of the day, what you did was, I wanted to make sure I got that stuff that I know full well nobody's going to disagree. I have no business with that in my spirit. With what's being said, I know I don't have no business with that in my spirit.
Absolutely not.
And I know it's inhibiting things. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and no, it's just I was just like following up with what you were saying. Like, there's no excuse. Like, I know people try to justify it and stuff, but there's no excuse for, like, you know, the filthy music, man. There's
Yeah.
no justification for it, like at all, like at all. There's zero justification for that stuff. Like, and you can't. I mean, you can't like use Quran or Hadith to like back you up, like, you know. And if you do, you're really like you're perverting the deen. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so, you know, alhamdulillah, I'm glad Allah, you know, and it's funny, Allah actually answered it in a much more strong way than I even like asked him
Mm-hmm.
to, because I just asked him to remove my love for that kind of music, and he made me hate it and despise it to the point where when I hear it, I'm disgusted by profanity ridden music. I'm disgusted by you know, all those topics that, you know, we mentioned before, you know, drugs and women, and you know, like, you know, negative stuff about women, and all that kind of stuff. I'm
And
like really genuinely disgusted by it, you know. So
it does speak to those two things not being able to occupy the same space, because they can't occupy the same space no matter how you try.
yeah,
So even if you're it doesn't matter what you do really, but no matter what you're listening to, how you're listening to it, it can't a good thing and a not good thing, or something that is focused and something that's not focused, it can't occupy the same space in order for you to concentrate on it. And so on a spiritual level, even you could correct me if I'm wrong, like if you're indulged in a sin, then the angels leave you, don't they? Like they leave you. Or the
yeah,
goodness,
Depending
there's
on the
like a
sin.
goodness, there's a goodness that leaves you. So it speaks to the fact that things that like good and bad can't, and I'm not saying, I'm not talking about music, I'm talking about just what it is. um Good and bad or whatever, like, okay, so listening to music and it can't occupy the same space, because like you said, you're not going to be able to give it its right time, you're not going to be able to give it its just due, because you have something else in your head. I'm still one of those people that listens to music. I still watch television. I just know that if I am concentrating on Quran, I can't do it. I can't do it. Even when I'm doing my work, some people can listen to, you know, they have the white noise of music or something. When I'm writing a piece, I have to have quiet, because those two things for me they can't occupy the same space, because those are two forms of art. So I need to focus on the art that I have, and that's, you know, that's
mm. that's a,
writing.
that's an interesting way to
Yeah.
put it.
Are you talking about at the same time? You're talking about at the same time, right? Is that what you're
I'm
saying?
talking about simultaneously. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
know what you're talking about, but
yeah.
I'm speaking to the other side of that coin of
Oh,
having something occupying the same space. At the it's
At the
at
same
this. Oh,
time.
okay, okay. I was just
Yeah,
making
it
sure.
can't.
I was just making
Yeah,
clear about that. Okay.
Yeah,
it can't, you know. And
right.
so when people try and make, I think it's a disservice when people try to make people feel bad for still having, let's say, the desire to listen to music, but they're striving to learn Quran. Like, you're making me feel, and that's what used to happen when we were younger. That's why I like BAM, the Born and Raised Muslim thing, because, you know, there were times where, you know, we're listening to our stuff and everything, but we still have our Quran.
Hmm.
But you're telling us that we're like, you know, no, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, but you're not putting a concentration on the fact that you say to them, look, this is something that you may or may not have to transition out of, but just, I guess I'm just talking about, like you said, with the space and time. With space and time, it's difficult for you to put an emphasis on something if you've got a whole lot of stuff. Hence why I told you two gentlemen, you're going to have to clear your plates a little bit. You know, you're going to have to, you know, you put some portions, you put some serving sizes on your plate that you're going to be able to handle, so that, you know, you get to reap the benefits of all of the beautiful, you guys are doing, you know, your brothers are doing amazing work, and you're tired, and so you don't even get to reap the benefits of, you know, the beautiful
Nah, I sleep when
fruits
I
that
die.
you're putting, huh?
I sleep when I die.
And that's,
I'm messing with you.
I know you're joking. I know you're joking
He's only
crazy.
partially joking. He's adding that.
Yes, yes. So then I'm gonna have to throw on you that your body has a right over you, right? You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
so
Right.
Yes,
you
No,
know,
ma'am.
and
definitely,
Yes,
so
definitely.
ma'am.
you know, I think in that same tone that your body has a right over you, you focus yourself on that thing, you know, so that you're not overloading yourself. That's what happens now with technology. We overload ourselves with information. As soon as you want to find something, go to Shake Google. Oh, I got it. You don't even have to research too much anymore. Go to a library, look at the Dewey Decimals. Like, you don't have to do that. All you do is go to Google, and that's it. So you lose that whole idea of I wonder what. You don't have that idea of that. But anyway, I was getting ready to digress. But I'm just speaking on the space part.
Yeah, definitely.
Some things cannot occupy the same space. They
Right.
just can't.
No, yeah, for me, definitely, I think I'm at my best when I am more disconnected. Oh, for when it comes to Quran, because I'm trying to memorize and stuff. Like, if you have a goal, I would advise, if somebody's trying to like really memorize a lot of Quran, like a lot of Quran, it would be best to pull away from music, at least during that journey. You know what I mean? Because memorizing Quran needs your full attention.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It just there's no room really for a whole lot. Not even just music, just period. Other stuff. Period. Even other good stuff. Like, if you're volunteering too much and you want to memorize Quran, we were having this conversation with one of my community member, but a young lady in the community, kind of like a niece to me, and she, we were talking about our struggles with memorizing Quran, because she wants to memorize the Quran, and our teacher was like, you're gonna have to start saying no, because she's a person who's like really highly in demand, because she's very bright, she's super smart, very responsible, dependable, and all these things. She's like everything that every organization wants in a person, and she's young, and so on, and so everybody wants her to do everything, you know what I'm saying? And so he's like, you're gonna have to start telling people no. If this is what you want, if this is what you want, you're gonna have to start telling people no. And so it's not just about the music, but it's just like, depending on what your goal, what kind of goal you got with the Quran, that would inform what type of relationship you should have with pretty much anything else in your life.
Yeah. Saying that, it actually makes me think of times where I will say this too. When you're recovering, and I'll just make this again a personal experience, because everyone's different, right? But I've actually seen even non-Muslims talk about this. When you're recovering from things like heartbreak, or you're recovering from trauma, it's also be very, very careful with what you listen to. Very careful what you listen to, and I would actually say make it mostly Quran. Why? Because your heart is actually open, like it's actually, and what can come inside, like it's actually open, like it's actually, like the scar or whatever is going on is actually open. So, and whatever goes in at that time, it's far higher likelier to become a part of you and a part of your process of healing, and it comes with you, right? And so I'll say that too. And if you can get more into the remembrance during that time and the Quran and things like that, then it will grow you even that much more during that time. They talk about the concept, a lot of, scholars talk about the concept of the heart being broken, and that being the time when you become closer to Allah, right? But that also means that if you move away from becoming closer to Allah during that time, you'll become closer to whatever that thing is that you're moving away, you're moving to.
Right.
And if you're listening, for example, love songs, or you're listening to these people who are talking about, or filling yourself up with pride because of the rejection that you feel, or that type of thing, you'll become hardened in that particular thing. Right? And so this whole concept of choosing the time and being very careful, and then spacing out, the music, I think these are very, very good and more nuanced advices, because we're in a society where it's all around us, and and trying to tell everybody just to throw it all out, it's not realistic. You're going to end up probably just making people just not know what to do at all, and then engaging in it in times where it's not healthy. But that's one of the things that I will say. that time, actually that time when you're hurting based on things that have happened, it's also an opportunity, and you will waste it actually a lot if you end up doing things like listening to, especially music with a bunch of crap in it, especially that. But I would even say, like, the more you can actually engage in Quran during that time, the more it's almost miraculous what can happen during that time. You know what I'm saying? So that as well, I would say too.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. This was a good discussion.
Alhamdulillah. I'm gonna let you go.
Benefited a lot.
And it's like almost 2 hours. Almost 2 hours. Wow,
First time we went this long, subhanAllah.
I know. It's like, wait, is it almost 9? Or we did start at like 7:30, almost 7:30, 7:25.
Okay.
Wait, so we did start like a little bit later.
Late. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, but all right. So inshallah, I want everybody to remember to tune into brother Ashir's podcast tonight. Tonight at what time?
7 Eastern, 6 Central, and then 4 Pacific. Nobody ever include Mountain, but Mountain would be 5.
We don't ever say Mountain. You're right.
We'll never say Mountain.
Right, that's true.
I'm including y'all Mountain Muslims. 5 o'clock for you guys. 5 o'clock for the Mountain Muslims.
Right, and where can they tune? Can they tune in on? Where can they tune in?
You can tune in on right here on Facebook, as well as on YouTube. So go to YouTube, just search up, Measured Tones Institute of Quran. My channel should definitely pop up. It's my logo with the green and gray, sort of like a Quran stand looking thing, with like an M at the bottom and all that stuff, and there's some Arabic in it. So Measured Tones Institute of Quran on YouTube, and then also Measured Tones Institute of Quran on Facebook. So both of those platforms I'm streaming.
Okay. All right. Alhamdulillah. All right. And then just to let everyone know, inshallah, that the we're gonna move to I think we're gonna move now to reviews of sort of how we're reciting Surat al-Fatiha, and also reflections on it as well. There's so much that people, we read it all the time, but I think there's so much that most people don't even realize that can come from that surah, the opening, right? So
yeah, and I think we should probably. You think we should push the time to?
We should put. What do you think?
I think we should, because right now, because we were starting at 6 my time, which 7 your time, but like Fudger's coming in at like 5:55.
Yeah.
Gives me like, I would have to like skip sunnahs and stuff.
So 7:30.
Yeah, I think
7:30. Yeah, 7:30 for my time and 6:30 your time, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because in that way it's right after Fajr ends over here, and you got a good time to do what you need to do as well. So,
right.
All right, inshallah, 7:30, and then so we'll give announcements, and we're gearing up now for Ramadan. So just to let you know that also the Measured Path has some programming that we're excited about that we're going to be providing for Ramadan. Some Quran things, maybe some stories of the prophets, working on a lot of different things with some people that I'm excited about, alhamdulillah. And so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I was busy last year, mashallah.
Yeah, we was busy, inshallah. We want to be busy like that again, inshallah. We want to be busy, hopefully even more busy, to give people stuff. And by the way, inshallah, also to make sure everyone who are people like you, I want actually to make sure that you're
what?
Yeah.
Meaning
you just went out. You went out.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know what happened with that. No, I was gonna say, and we're inshallah gonna be a content aggregator, which means even like your podcast, like kind of like how Apple, like I'm adding to the functionality of it. So if you have a podcast like that one, like I gotta grab Measured Tones podcast, you know what I'm saying? So people end up going there, things like that. Inshallah, we'll also do that. So stay tuned. All right.
Alhamdulillah.
So you can close us out again, inshallah, with the reading and the dua.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا صدق الله مولانا العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله.
Do eucalyptus inhale. Like put some in some hot water. Put a towel over you.
Inshallah, yeah.
Put it in. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Bite on some garlic.
Oh yeah. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
Inshallah.
All
right. So we can go ahead close out. Inshallah. We'll see everyone next time. Any dua you want to make before we go?
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
وعليكم السلام.